New York, October 1970. It was the kind of Friday night the city had experienced so many times before that it no longer registered as anything unusual. And yet, like all such nights, it carried with it a quiet accumulation of something unspoken. October in New York did not arrive gently. It moved through the avenues with intention, slipping between buildings, pressing against coats, reminding everyone that summer had fully surrendered and that the city, as always, would continue without hesitation. The people moved the way they always moved, quickly, efficiently, eyes forward, concerned only with the next immediate thing. The city did not pause for reflection. It never had. It simply continued. And on 7th Avenue, standing exactly where it had always stood, was Madison Square Garden. It was not a beautiful building. It had never tried to be. There was no elegance in its structure, no artistic ambition in its design. It did not need any of those things. Its purpose was far more specific and far more powerful. It existed to contain something that could not exist anywhere else in quite the same way. It existed to contain people, and more importantly, to contain what people became when they gathered together. By late afternoon, the process had already begun. They came in waves, men in heavy coats, young boys gripping tickets too tightly, older men who had seen fights before and spoke about them as if they were recalling wars, vendors lining the sidewalks, their voices cutting through the wind, selling programs with glossy covers that displayed two faces, two men who had trained in isolation for months, each preparing for the same singular moment. Scalpers worked the edges of the crowd, their movements quick, their voices low, offering entry into something that had already begun to feel larger than the price printed on any ticket. The words on the marquee were simple: Heavyweight Championship. They did not need to say anything else. In New York in 1970, those two words carried weight. They pulled people from every borough, every background, every kind of life, and funneled them into one building for one reason: to watch two men test each other at the absolute limit of what human beings could endure and impose. By the time evening settled fully over the city, nearly 20,000 people had passed through the turnstiles. Inside, the garden began to transform. The air thickened. Popcorn, cigarette smoke, anticipation. It was a specific kind of atmosphere, one that could not be recreated artificially. It came only from numbers, from thousands of people sitting close enough to feel each other's presence, all waiting for something that had not yet happened but was inevitable. Yang sat at the center of it all, elevated. Above it, the lights burned with a harsh clarity, creating a small, perfect world inside the larger chaos. Outside the ring, there was noise, movement, distraction. Inside the ropes, there would only be truth. The crowd arranged itself around that truth in widening circles, seats filled, aisles crowded, standing room claimed by those who had arrived too late but refused to leave. Each person carried their own version of expectation. Some wanted violence, some wanted victory, some wanted history. Most did not know exactly what they wanted. They only knew they needed to be there. Bruce Lee arrived at 7:15 p.m. He entered the garden without ceremony, without recognition, without any indication that his presence would eventually alter the entire course of the evening. He had been in New York for 3 days. His visit had nothing to do with boxing. The ticket had come to him casually, offered by a promoter who spoke of the fight in simple terms, not exaggerated, not persuasive, just a quiet assurance that it would be worth seeing. Bruce Lee had accepted, not out of excitement, but out of curiosity. He observed fighting the way other men observed art or architecture, not emotionally, but analytically. To him, systems of combat were not bound by tradition or loyalty, actions of principles, patterns, reactions. Things to be studied, understood, refined. He took his seat in the 4th row on the east side. He sat down and became still. Not the restless stillness of someone waiting for entertainment, but the complete stillness of someone who did not require distraction to occupy his mind. Around him, the crowd shifted, spoke, laughed, argued. He remained unaffected by all of it, present, observing. To his right sat a retired postal worker from Brooklyn, a man named Frank Ciccone, who had brought his young grandson to his first fight. Frank leaned slightly toward the boy, speaking in a low, patient voice, explaining the rules, the structure, the meaning behind what they were about to see. Bruce Lee could hear him. He chose not to listen. 2 seats to his left, separated by an empty chair, sat Rosa Delgado. She wore her best coat, carefully buttoned despite the warmth inside the arena. Her posture was straight, her hands folded neatly in her lap. There was nothing outwardly remarkable about her, nothing that would draw attention in a crowd of 20,000, and yet there was something unmistakable in her presence. a quiet intensity, a contained emotion. The kind that comes from years of experience rather than moments of excitement. Inside her purse was a photograph of her son, Carlos Delgado, tonight's challenger. The energy in the arena continued to build. Preliminary fights came and went, each one louder than the last, each one adding another layer to the growing anticipation. The crowd reacted, shouted, argued with decisions, celebrated knockdowns, but all of it felt temporary, like practice for something greater. Because everyone knew the real event had not yet begun. Backstage, preparations unfolded with precision. Jack Morales, the reigning heavyweight champion, moved through his routine with the discipline of a man who had done this many times before. 31 years old, undefeated, 31 wins, 24 knockouts. He had built his reputation not only on victory, but on durability, on the ability to absorb punishment that would have ended other fighters and remain standing unchanged, unmoved, unshaken. They called him Iron Jack, not as a nickname but as a conclusion. At 6 feet 4 inches and 220 pounds, he represented something more than just skill. He represented certainty, the kind of certainty that comes from never having been proven wrong inside a ring. He wore the championship belt around his waist over his robe, not for display, but as a statement. His opponent, Carlos Delgado, prepared differently. Younger, less experienced, but dangerous. His trainer, Eddie Vega, had spent over a year studying Morales, watching tapes, analyzing patterns, identifying weaknesses that others had overlooked. He believed he had found something small, but real, something that could change everything. At 8:45 p.m., something happened that was not part of any plan. Jack Morales left his locker room early. This in itself was not unusual. Champions often entered the arena before their challengers, claiming the space, asserting dominance before the fight even began. But what followed was different. He stepped into the ring, not toward his corner, but toward the center. He stood there for a moment, hands resting on the ropes, looking out at the crowd, 20,000 people, watching him. He turned slowly, scanning the front rows. Not casually, not aimlessly, he was searching for something specific. And the people closest to the ring felt it. That subtle shift. The discomfort of being observed not as part of a crowd, but as an individual, as a potential target of attention from a man who carried violence as naturally as breath. Then he found what he was looking for. His gaze stopped, locked, on a single point, on the east side, 4th row. Rosa Delgado. Jack Morales did not look away. A moment that stretched longer than it should have. He kept his eyes fixed on Rosa Delgado, as if confirming something to himself, not her identity, but her significance. The arena, already alive with noise, seemed to fold slightly inward around that single line of sight. He leaned toward his corner, but his voice carried farther than it needed to. "That's Delgado's mother!" The words moved outward, row by row. People turned. Not all at once, but in fragments, heads shifting, eyes searching, attention redirecting toward the 4th row on the east side. Toward a woman who had done nothing to invite attention and yet now found herself at the center of it. Morales didn't stop. She came to watch her son lose. There was a reaction this time. A low murmur, uneven, uncertain. Some laughed, but not comfortably. Others said nothing. The kind of silence that isn't empty but filled with judgment. Rosa Delgado looked up at him and held his gaze. She did not respond. She did not flinch. She did not look away. There was something in that stillness that did not match the moment, something that did not participate in the spectacle being created around her. Morales studied her for another second, and something shifted in him. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it was there. Expression of a man who had tested a boundary and found that it did not react the way he expected and decided in response to push further. He moved, not back to his corner, but across the ring, each step slow, deliberate. The crowd began to notice. The movement did not belong to the routine. It did not follow the script people unconsciously expected before a fight. It felt off, unstructured, unnecessary, and therefore dangerous. By the time he reached the ropes on the east side, the first few rows had gone quiet. Morales leaned forward, gripping the top rope, looking down directly at Rosa Delgado from his full height. Up close, the difference between them was stark. He was massive, controlled power contained in muscle and bone. She was small, still, unyielding in a different way. "Your son," he said, his voice lower now but somehow clearer, "is going to leave here on a stretcher tonight." The words landed heavier than before, because of the distance, because of the directness, because there was no longer any separation between performance and intention. The people closest to Rosa froze. Not physically, but internally, caught in that strange moment where something feels wrong but not yet enough has happened to justify action. Rosa Delgado did not respond. Her hands remained folded in her lap, but her fingers tightened slightly. That was all. Morales watched her, waiting. For fear, for anger, for anything. It did not come, and in that absence something in him hardened. He should have stopped. Every instinct trained into him by years of professional discipline should have told him that he had already crossed the line, that whatever psychological advantage he hoped to gain had been achieved. He should have stepped back, returned to his corner, prepared for the fight. He did not. Instead, he drew back his hand. It wasn't the motion of a professional punch. There was no setup, no balance shift, no calculated mechanics. It was casual, dismissive, a gesture more than a strike. And then he hit her. The sound was wrong. Not loud, but wrong. A sharp, flat impact that didn't belong in that space, didn't belong outside the structure of a sanctioned fight. Rosa's head snapped to the side. Her body tilted. The people beside her caught her before she could fall completely from her seat. A thin line of blood appeared above her eyebrow. Then more. Her hands came up slowly, instinctively pressing against the cut. She did not cry out, not a sound. Around her, the reaction was immediate. Gasps. Shouts. Movement. The crowd did not erupt all at once. It fractured, sections reacting differently, confusion spreading faster than understanding. Some stood. Some leaned forward. Some shouted toward the ring. Others simply stared, unable to process what they had just seen, because it did not fit. There was no place for this inside the expectations of the night. This was not part of the fight. This was something else. At ringside, the press row came alive. Chairs scraped. Notebooks shifted. Voices overlapped. Journalists who had spent years observing violence within rules suddenly found themselves confronting something that existed outside of them. Security began moving. Officials rushed toward the ring. Morales' corner men grabbed at him, pulling him back from the ropes, their faces tight with a mix of shock and urgency. But the moment had already happened. It could not be undone. 2 seats away, Bruce Lee stood up. It did not look like a reaction. It did not carry the scattered energy of surprise or outrage. It was precise, decided. The kind of movement that begins long before the body physically executes it. The people around him felt it before they fully registered what they were seeing. Frank Ciccone, seated to his right, would later struggle to describe it. He would say it was like the air changed, like something invisible had shifted position. The noise of the arena, already unstable, seemed to distort further around that single action. Bruce Lee did not look at the crowd. He did not look at the security rushing forward. He did not look at the people trying to understand what had just happened. He looked only at Jack Morales and began to move. The first man reached for him almost immediately, a hand on his arm. Then another. A second man grabbed his shoulder. A third stepped in front of him. A fourth caught his jacket from behind. It would have stopped most people, not through force but through interruption, through the sudden friction of being physically restrained by multiple bodies. Bruce Lee did not resist, not in the way they expected. There was no struggle, no jerking movements, no visible aggression. He simply continued forward, steady, unbroken. The 4 men moved with him because they had no choice. But it did not stop him. It only attached them to his motion. He reached the edge of the ring. His hand found the apron. His foot lifted. Placed on the bottom rope. The men pulled harder now. Voices rose. "Hey, stop! Security!" But it was already too late. Something in the alignment of bodies shifted a small adjustment, almost imperceptible, and suddenly the resistance lost its center. Not by overpowering it, but by bypassing it. He slipped between the ropes and stepped into the ring. The arena changed, not gradually, instantly. The noise collapsed, not into silence exactly, into something close enough that every small sound became sharp and distinct. 20,000 people, watching, unable to categorize what they were seeing. Bruce Lee stood in the ring, black t-shirt, black pants, street shoes, no gloves, no preparation, no introduction. Across from him, Jack Morales turned. Their eyes met. Distance, 15 feet. For a brief moment, neither moved. Morales' expression shifted. Confusion. Then recognition of a challenge. Then something else, something slower. Deeper. An instinct that registered before thought could organize it. Bruce Lee spoke. "Get out of the ring." His voice was quiet, but in the stillness it carried. Clear. Undeniable, not a request. Not a threat. A statement. Morales frowned slightly. "What?" Bruce Lee did not repeat himself immediately. He held his gaze, then said, "Get out of the ring and apologize." Jack Morales stared at him. For a fraction of a second, the world he understood hesitated. Not because he was afraid, not yet, but because what stood in front of him did not fit into any category his experience had prepared him for. There were rules to this space. Even chaos inside a boxing ring followed a kind of structure. This did not. A man in street clothes. No gloves, no introduction. Standing in his ring, telling him what to do. Morales' jaw tightened. "What did you just say?" Bruce Lee did not raise his voice. He did not step forward. He did not perform. He simply repeated, exactly as before, "Get out of the ring," and apologized. The words did not echo. They landed. Flat. Final. Around them, the arena held its breath. Security had reached the edge of the ring but had not yet entered. Officials hovered, uncertain, caught between protocol and instinct. No one wanted to be the first to move, because no one fully understood what they were stepping into. Morales glanced briefly toward his corner. His trainer's face had changed. Not panic, not even anger. Something closer to warning. A look that said, "This is not right." But Morales had lived too long inside a different kind of truth. A simpler one. That size mattered. That power resolved things. That anything placed in front of him could be broken if necessary. He looked back at Bruce Lee and made his decision. It was not a calculated decision. It was reflex. The accumulated weight of years in which physical dominance had never failed him. "You need to leave my ring," he said, his voice dropping lower now, harder, "before something bad happens to you." Bruce Lee watched him, not his face. The subtle shift of weight, the tightening of the shoulder, the angle of the hips. Signals, clear, predictable. He had seen them thousands of times. Morales took a step forward. It was enough. Bruce Lee gave him one last chance. Walk away. It wasn't louder, but it was different. Less instruction, more conclusion. Morales did not walk away. He moved. A quick extension of the lead hand, a jab, not his strongest weapon. Not intended to end anything. A test. A way to establish range. To measure distance before committing to something heavier. It was a mistake, because Bruce Lee was no longer there. The jab cut through empty space. For the smallest possible moment, Morales' balance shifted forward, not dramatically, not visibly to most, but enough. Enough for someone who knew exactly what to look for. Bruce Lee stepped inside that moment. Not around it, not away from it, through it. His body moved with no wasted motion, no tension, no hesitation, just alignment. His fist traveled no more than 6 inches, a short, direct path. From where it was to where it needed to be. It landed. The sound was different from anything the crowd had heard that night. Not the crack of glove against skin. Not the thud of padded impact. Something tighter, denser, like force compressed into a space too small to contain it. It struck Morales in the solar plexus, and everything stopped. For 1 second he remained standing, eyes open, as if the message had not yet reached the rest of him. Then it did. The air left his body all at once. Not as a shout, as a cry, but as an absence. His structure collapsed. Not violently, not dramatically, but completely. A building whose foundation had been removed without warning. He went down. In the center of the ring. No count, no referee intervention, no continuation, just stillness. 20,000 people watched, and no one spoke, because what they had just seen did not belong to anything they understood. A heavyweight champion, undefeated, dropped not by another fighter, not by a combination, not by a war of rounds, but by a single movement, 8 seconds. From beginning to end, Bruce Lee stood where he was. He did not follow up. He did not step closer. He did not acknowledge the crowd. For a brief moment, he simply looked at Morales, not with triumph, not with anger, but with something closer to completion, as if the situation had resolved itself exactly as it needed to. Nothing more, nothing less. Then he turned, walked to the ropes on the east side, and looked down. Rosa Delgado sat upright, a cloth pressed gently against her eyebrow. The bleeding had slowed. Her posture was unchanged, back straight, hands steady, eyes clear. She looked up at him. There was no fear in her expression now, no shock, only recognition of something she had witnessed and understood without needing explanation. Bruce Lee met her gaze. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the arena had not yet returned. The world existed in that small, suspended space between action and reaction. Then he nodded. Once. A small movement, respectful. Acknowledging, Rosa Delgado nodded back. Just as simply. An exchange that required no words. Because both of them knew what had happened had not been about spectacle, or dominance, or even victory. It had been about something more fundamental. Bruce Lee stepped through the ropes, dropped back onto the arena floor, and began walking. The sound returned slowly, first as a murmur, then as overlapping voices, then as a rising wave of noise that struggled to organize itself around what had just occurred. People stood, pointed, tried to explain. Bruce Lee reached his seat, sat down, adjusted his jacket, and became still again, as if nothing had happened, as if he had never left. In the ring, chaos resumed its function. Officials rushed in. Medical staff followed. Morales' corner surrounded him. Voices urgent now. Commands. Questions, no immediate answers. At ringside, the journalists remained frozen longer than anyone else. Pens in hand, notebooks open. Years of experience offered them nothing. No precedent. No framework. Just a blank space where language should have been. One of them, Gerald Harris, would later say that he sat there for nearly 4 minutes before writing anything at all. Not because he didn't know what he had seen, but because there were no words for it. Not the right ones. Not yet. When he finally wrote, it was only 6 words. He never published them. He kept them for the rest of his career. 40 minutes later, the fight happened, because it had to. Because the structure demanded continuation, even when something had already disrupted its foundation. Carlos Delgado entered the ring, his mother still in her seat, the cut above her eyebrow cleaned and covered, her posture unchanged, her focus complete. She watched every second, every round, every exchange. With the same stillness she had carried all night, Carlos Delgado won 10 rounds. A hard fight, but something had shifted, something invisible, something that could not be measured, but could be felt. Jack Morales fought, but not as before. There was a hesitation now, a fraction of doubt, a missing piece at the center of his certainty. Something that had been taken from him before the first bell had even rung. The belt changed hands. The crowd roared. History recorded a new champion, but that was not what people carried home. They carried something else, something quieter, something harder to explain. Bruce Lee left the garden just before midnight. He stepped out onto 7th Avenue. The October cold met him immediately. The city moved around him the way it always moved. Unchanged, uninterested, continuous. He walked 2 blocks, raised his hand. A cab stopped. He got in, gave the address of his hotel, and disappeared into the flow of traffic. No announcement, no recognition, no need. Because some things do not require acknowledgement to be real. And inside Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people remained connected by something they could not fully describe. A moment, 8 seconds. A man who stood up when no one else did, and acted as if there had never been another option.